There has never been a greater need to be able to pull in all of the pieces that are going on in the world and say, how are they connected? Because it's easy to be, this is crazy, and this is crazy, and this is crazy. There's a lot of crazy things happening, but what if is all kind of like fruit on the same tree? Then it kind of makes more sense. There's only one person I know that can kind of bring all that together and help it make sense, and she has some answers to your biggest questions right now, the one that only Mel K.
Yeah!
Mel.
What up, Mel?
Hi, guys. Thank you. It's been way too long. We got to get together more often because things are really going. And I know all of us have been to Turning Point. We all certainly felt the pain and sadness this weekend as the rest of the world. And I think, I just really want to say that it's important for people to understand that this is part of a way bigger picture. There is no dismissing this. It is very similar to me to the assassination and murder of Martin Luther King for our time, or JFK. Unfortunately, what people really don't understand, and I hope that will kind of clear up today, is why and who are behind this never-ending, it seems, desire to destroy America from within, to break this country, our hearts, our minds, our pride, our fortitude, all of that. I think Charlie Kirk was a big threat against those that seek to end nation states that have worked for decades upon decades to undermine the cause and the beauty and the amazingness of this nation. They are very identifiable. We've done many shows on them. And I do want to say that for many, many years, even Rush Limbaugh and other great people would say, well, it's not a conspiracy. It's not this, but the facts are that right now I'm working on my second book about 1944 to 1954 in the United States. And though I believe the Crown and the Europeans never accepted the American Revolution, I think after World War II, we were deceived on the grandest scale, and a lot of things went into play, including the International Organization Immunity Act, including a lot of things I call and fall under what I call the Rockefeller model, which has gotten away with pretending to be a philanthropic, organization when really it is a extension of the global public-private partnership, the international banking cartel, and their partners in the international law firms. As I have dug into this, a lot of this, I see myself constantly going back to the Dulles brothers. One, as you know, was they both worked at Sullivan and Cromwell, which was a firm that worked a lot in Switzerland. Of course, Alan Dulles was in the OSS in Switzerland during World War II. His brother was the lawyer for many firms that had one foot in Germany and one foot in America. They were both instrumental in creating the CIA.
Yep.
The CIA, in my estimation and my research, has never and was never meant to protect or serve the people of the United States of America. Rather, I believe that it was completely created to protect and serve the international bank cartel and the global public-private partnership of multinational corporations that are protected by multinational law firms, all of which lead me to where I think we have to go right now. I did send you a clip of Devin Nunes.
Now, real quick, before we get too much into it, because I'm so excited. I think this is the greatest intro to what we're going to be talking about ever, because one of my favorite things about you when we very first met you is your ability to like take, here's this thing, and everyone's focused on this thing. They're all zoomed in on this thing. Whenever a crisis happens, people just zoom in on the thing. Your ability to zoom out and look at like 30,000 feet. How did we get here? Where did this come from? 100-year perspective. Right. Who's behind it? Where's the money flow and all that? Unbelievable. So we're going to be covering all that today because I think everyone's attention right now is on what happened. And then it was immediately on who did it. And I think once they brought in Tyler, I think everyone now is asking the third question, which is why. And I think you're one of the perfect people to have on today to answer some of the why questions behind that. But if you guys want more from Mel K, themelkshow.com is a fountain of amazing resources there. Themelkshow.com. She has a tab called the resources tab that I would encourage everyone to go to, because this resources tab, I'm telling you, is full of the greatest information. She's going to have charts and diagrams and graphs and all kinds of stuff on here that you
deep dives on every topic you can think of.
I mean, just this alone could be like a 3-hour show right here. Just breaking this down. This could be
This
another.
show today is about that.
These could be on these little graphics right here. So themelkshow.com. But one thing you want to make sure you do is on her homepage, right at the top there, she has the where to sign up for her newsletter. I'm telling you, she is somebody that in case the internet goes crazy, in case censorship just ramps up again, like we've seen in the past, you want to hear her voice. So make sure you sign up for her newsletter. And then we've been doing shows with you, Mel, for 3 years now, consistently. 3 years now we've done regular shows with you. We've compiled everything you've ever sent us, every image you've ever sent us, every video you've ever sent us. We put it all together into one Dropbox folder. So if you're like, where are all these images? I mean, she takes screenshots of every article and who's behind who and the WHO and WEF and all the initials and acronyms. If you want all those images sent to you, text the number 40509, 40509. Text the word MEL, M-E-L, to 40509. You'll get that complete Dropbox with everything in it, including the videos that she's going to be talking about in today's show, breaking down who's behind the who on what is going on this past week.
Yeah, and I also want to mention, as you guys know, I wrote about 2 years ago a book called Americans Anonymous. It is actually based on my 20 years in recovery, and it is a recovery program for the American citizens. I wrote it because I felt that our country, 2 years ago, I think we were all together in Tulsa, and I just looked around and I felt like, God, America needs an intervention. We really need to understand that we have been abused, manipulated, lied to, particularly tax-paying citizens of the middle class in our country on such a grand scale. It went on steroids during that period of World War II while we were celebrating a win. I believe that the powers that be were preparing for where we are now, which is a third world war and another consolidation of power into Agenda 2030. And I go through it. I go through a lot of it, including when the rise of the communists and the Frankfurt School and a lot of things that people might not know about. There's a lot of history in there in the beginning. But then there is a real 12-step program that I feel, and I worked with a couple people, including MK Ultra survivor. I think she's been on your show, Kathy O'Brien, and other people on exercises on how to accept where we are, who we are, how we got here, and how every individual citizen has a choice to make. We are not 250 years old. And frankly, this is a book telling you that you are still a founder of this nation and every single person can be a part of our destiny. But we have to get invested and involved now. And that first starts with a section I call Sick is Our Secrets, which we'll talk about quite a bit today. And my next book will be 100% on that. Because if we do not understand how we have been deceived on a grand scale, then it's very hard to understand how so many people are unaware, even people that seem to know about it. That's why when I see Devin Nunes or Chip Roy or any of these people coming out and saying, we have to look at the organizations, follow the money. It's something that I've done from the beginning, and I do break down in that book. So I would highly recommend that book also for people that are trying to cope with realizing that a lot of the things they believed were wrong and why and who were behind that manipulation. The book is based on obviously AA, but it's based on that our country is addicted to conflict and chaos. And to me, I believe that has been no different than any other drug, and it has been pushed on this nation by the same people, frankly, that have run a lot of the drug operations around the world. So
it's a perfect analogy, and it really flows into where we are. And it's the answer, it's the solution, it's the vaccine, so to speak, to get us out of this.
Yes.
It's easy. Use an example. If you drive in southern states, we lived in Tennessee for a lot of years. If you go through Alabama, Mississippi, all those states, there's something down there called kudzu. Do you know what kudzu is? You see it. It's a vining growth that only grows in the South, but it grows up trees and it'll like suffocate and crush a tree. It just grows wild. It's everywhere in the South. It's called kudzu. It just grows wild. And you can't stop it. It just vines and grows. So if you're driving down the road, you're not from, it looks like that. If you're not from the South, you drive down, you're like, wow, and you just look at one tree, you think, man, that vine just grew up and crushed the tree, and it's an isolated thing. And then you realize, okay, it also needs a perfect environment to grow. It doesn't grow in Minnesota or Wyoming, other places as well. It's got to have humidity, it's got the right soil. But then if you look at it, you're just driving by and that's it. Kudzu was imported from Asia, I think in the late 1800s, but in 1930 there was an erosion problem. And so the U.S. government provided kudzu seed because it was green and it was hardy and it would help fight erosion. They didn't realize that it spread like it does and it's just out of control. And so I look at a lot of things that happen in our news cycle kind of like that. If you're just driving down the road and you see a tree getting smushed by kudzu, it's like that's bad for that tree.
Yeah.
But like, where does it come from? Well, kudzu only survives in this environment, so you have to create a fertile environment for it, but also had to be imported from somewhere. And a lot of times it's government funded, and it's like maybe a good intention, to somebody, but has a bad outcome. And a lot of the things that we're dealing with, when I look at, even like, with Charlie Kirk, are so complex. The fertile environment that allowed it to happen. The fact you look at an isolated incident, but you scale back, it's like much bigger and complex than that.
Right.
And then there's usually a government involvement that maybe somebody had a good idea with a good intention, and then that ran out of control, like the CIA, and other organizations. Yes. And that's what you do a great job of. And I hope we can go through today is not just, hey, that tree is being suffocated by kudzu. Where did it come from? What's the environment that makes it grow? And when did this begin? Because kind of like a lot of situations we deal with today, it kind of goes back to 1930 and some government program that imported the seed to the South.
Exactly. So if we're ready, we can play I think the Devin Nunes is a good place to start, and then we'll dig into exactly what you're saying. Great.
While Antifa was allowed to roam free, burning down buildings, going into blue cities, creating chaos, and the FBI did nothing about it. And so I think what you see, Kash Patel, the new director of the FBI, as we know, there's so much to clean up, so much history here. But at the end of the day, if you look at what's happened, that the radical left in this country have been trying to kill conservatives now for going on 8 years. Steve Scalise, my former colleague, a Republican leader, many others, could have been gunned down on that baseball field. Thankfully, he was saved, but still today he carries those injuries with him. President Trump was nearly shot at twice, nearly killed, and finally they got Charlie Kirk. This violence has to end. It's the political left. I think it's total nonsense when you hear now these politicians that are coming out saying, "Oh well, we gotta lower down the rhetoric." The rhetoric was done by my former colleagues in Congress. Yeah. It was also done and supported by a very sophisticated organization. Many people say Soros, but it's not just Soros who helps to organize this. Soros works in conjunction with the Democratic National Committee and other foundations to support these radical groups across the country that has led to this unprecedented historical violence, right? And what you really have, I think this is just my summation of it, and then you have the 1960s radicals that saw this quasi work in the 1960s. They are now running this country, running the radical left, and it's now resulted in people getting assassinated. It's turned into nothing but a death cult. And Kash and the FBI, they have a lot of work cut out for them to try to get to the bottom of, as Kash always said, you got to follow the money.
Ain't it the truth? Well, you got to follow the money, folks. And I think first and foremost, we have to understand we were betrayed on a massive scale by the, I believe, compromised Wilson administration that allowed the international bankers who never accepted the revolution as real. Many of them still in the EU and the international banking cartel and the global public-private partnership still look at America as part of Europe. That is the way they think. That is why everything, including the unmitigated immigration and all of the programs and global warming and all that nonsense really does come back to the West, particularly white nations that had their own culture, their own languages, their own history, their own flavor, decades, years, and for whatever reason, we're not seeing this. You must take all these refugees that don't want to assimilate and don't want to be part of your nation and are antithetical to your values and your constitution. But that's not happening in China. That's not happening in South America. That's not happening in Brazil. It's not happening, So you do have to understand that this is a war on the West, and the West itself is still I believe, infiltrated and controlled by the same factions that funded and both sides of World War I, World War II, and always planned well before Donald Trump came on the scene, a World War III to kick into Agenda 2030 and the final totalitarian technocracy global public-private partnership actually stepping out in front of everyone and making it clear that they run basically the world. Now, what you see on the screen right now is on my resource page. This is the machine that we will be talking about today. And frankly, it is all connected. And when you look at it, you think in terms of, it looks like so many groups, but when you follow the money, it really shows you that it's not so many groups. And we're going to get into a couple of things that I believe are very important for the American people to know, which they don't know, which is, first of all, the people that created the Federal Reserve also created the nonprofit sector that basically runs above our government, controlling everything for the goal of swaying public opinion towards the direction of an international banking and international elite cartel that would control everything. As you know, I do a lot of talks about David Rockefeller, particularly his memoir, where he says not only is that true, but that he's proud of that. And if people call his family internationalists, that frankly, he believes that bankers and billionaires and the educated elite should be running the United States, not autodetermination of the people. Of course,
Right.
we have a Constitution and Bill of Rights, and all because you're wealthy and have eluded the people, which I will get into in a minute, does not mean that you are a superior human being that should be deciding. And in the United States, we are not a democracy, and all these lunatics that continue to fight for democracy are just lying to the people. Like Devin Nunes brought up, we had done a show about 3 years ago about the Weather Underground and how they raised the radicals, particularly two of them that really kicked into high gear, which would be the radical who took hostage a professor and terrorized the campus of Columbia named Eric Holder, who ended up becoming the attorney general that weaponized everything against the ideological opposition that believed in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, not the fundamental transformation into America being a vassal state of the international cartel. And then, of course, Barack Obama, whose whole history was hidden from us, but started with a mother in USAID and two fathers that are both CIA connected, including years in which there was an overthrow of a color revolution in Indonesia, where he lived with Suharto, his father, and his mother was tied to the CIA and USAID, as were his grandparents in Hawaii, and then afterwards, and then his whole history was hidden from us. So
Wow.
these are the same radicals, I believe, that Devin Nunes is talking about. And I wanted to start with the first thing, which we've talked about before, but I think we have to reiterate when we're talking about the money. So the same people that created the Federal Reserve are the same people that created what I call the Rockefeller model of subverting countries all over the world by using foundations and philanthropic organizations. I call it the Rockefeller model. And frankly, I will explain it today and how it grew. But it started with Peabody and Rockefeller, Carnegie, Ford. A lot of these groups are still functioning today. You got the Annenberg, you got all of these different groups. And they also came in tandem with, as we talked about last time, the International Organization Immunity Act. So every single one of these groups got
Question for you on this chart here, because I'm studying this chart as we're talking. I'm listening. This outside group seems like it's kind of the funding mechanism. So like as you're kind of going out this outside ring here, you got like the Democracy Fund, New America Foundation Fund, the Carnegie Endowment. Like this is new money, old money. This is like money. Like this is where the money's coming from. And so you can kind of see, like, there's the Soros down there, Democracy Alliance, Mayor's Fund, New York Bloomberg. So there's all these different funds. Obviously, Clinton, MacArthur Foundation, Tides Foundation. I mean, these are names that come up all the time. The Rockefeller brothers. And then inside that, there's all these organizations. And these organizations are the ones a lot of people hear about. They see these are the brunt force objects that are being pounded on the American people, but from the money coming from the outside. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And a lot of those are funding the shock troops that we see in the streets. Believe me, they are going to, as every time this model, and I want to say it's the same money that has been funding every revolution since the French Revolution on both sides, which is what's
Jeez.
going on right now in Israel. It's going on right now in Ukraine, which is why Donald Trump called the bluff of the EU that we'll just all put, as long as you guys stop dealing with Russia and China, then we'll put sanctions on them. But when you guys, the bottom line is that the international banking cartel and then the international intelligence, which is the CIA, and I believe the CIA not to be separate really than MI6 or Mossad. But
Okay.
I know that a lot of people find that, this whole thing hard to believe. But if I'm really digging in and watching how they created the model of subversion of national sovereignty of nations, including our own. And it really is about when George H.W. Bush walked on the floor of the United Nations after attempting to assassinate Ronald Reagan, for also coming to the conclusions that JFK and RFK and MLK and many other people did before him, even Eisenhower on his way out the door, though a lot of stuff happened underneath Eisenhower that created this disaster. Frankly, what we do need to know is he said that the world would be on a new world order run by the United Nations, and we would be global citizens, and everyone clapped not knowing what he was saying. What he left out of that was a new financial world order, because it is the control of the money that is running this operation from World War I. Then World War I, we get the Marshall Fund, which then is used to rearm Germany, and that included people from America, including, like I said, the Dulles brothers, Sullivan and Cromwell, most of the big banks from Wall Street. A lot of the multinational corporations had one foot in Germany and one foot in America the entire time our boys were dying over there. 60 million people died or suffered from the World War II, while the entire time in Switzerland, neutral, business never stopped. Money never stopped. Policies that were planning for a future world government based on a financial control model that then got international immunity that it still enjoys to this day, including all of the NGOs and the United Nations, was created by this same group of people and the same money and the same players. In fact, it was IG Farben and Rockefeller, Standard Oil, that decided that Standard Oil would handle all the oil and gas and everything, and IG Farben would handle all the Zyklon B and the pharmaceuticals and everything. Well, both of them are still basically, there today because nobody paid the price. And frankly, very few people paid, and we did a whole show on this, so I won't get into it, but very few people were held accountable for World War II, and almost nobody since. But what the CIA itself has always been created by these same people was to protect them, not our nation, nothing else. And every overthrow, from what happened in Congo to Vietnam to many other things along the way, including the war on terror, I believe to be run by these people. I do not believe NATO to be a defensive force. In fact, George Soros in 1993 wrote the Soros World Order, as he called it, but it was called the NATO World Order. It is still on his website. And then his like-minded folk, like Kissinger and Brzezinski particularly, wrote something very similar. And they were all obviously funded by Rockefeller, who we'll get into in 1 second. I did want to share some facts with you, and then you can ask me about it. So the biggest problem, in my opinion, in this scenario was what they created, which is the Rockefeller model. So it would be 501c3 organizations in America. There are approximately right now 1.8 million 501c3 organizations in the United States as of the tally of 2023. 501c3 is designated by the other betrayal of Wilson, which would be the IRS. So Wilson put in both the international bankers into the infiltration into our country with the Federal Reserve, but also with the IRS. Well, who decides who gets 501c3 protection, which means no taxes and really no oversight? That would be the IRS. So as we know, when Eric Holder and Lois Lerner targeted right-wing or conservative or Tea Party groups, and Eric Holder demanded all the lists of donors that were handed over to him by Lois Lerner, of course, the IRS didn't get in trouble? Well, this has been going on for decades. First and foremost, I wanted to also say that right now, basically for over a century, lawmakers, this is a report that came out not too long ago in June from the Tax Foundation, a tax oversight group that is truly independent. They said that lawmakers have exempted politically favored organizations and industries from tax code. As a result, the tax-exempt nonprofit economy now comprises 15% of GDP, spans more than 1.8 million organizations, and manages over $8 trillion in assets. In 2020, it pocketed more than $238 billion in net income. The tax-exempt sector basically is the U.S. has allowed these supposedly benevolent tax-exempt organizations to play their own game since Wilson, like I said. So many of these groups and the tax-exempt programs were designated and designed under the Wilson-Gorman Tariff Act of 1894 and the Tax Act of 1909. Again, that was in the 19th century, okay? Not the 21st century, but nothing's changed. The majority of tax-exempt organizations today are business-like in form and function, including credit unions, hospitals, utilities, insurance companies, universities, professional athletic associations, golf clubs, consulting firms, and others. Business-like income has been the fastest growing source of 501c3 tax-exempt organizations for over 30 years, now accounting for 71% of their income. Charitable donations of 501c3s make up less than 12% of their nonprofit income.
Wow.
And more than 55% of all of the income generated by 501c3 organizations come from tax-exempt hospitals and healthcare plans. The largest nonprofit in America is the Kaiser Permanente Kaiser Health Plan, hospital and state health plans, which generated over $110 billion in revenue in 2020, paying zero taxes. Also, the unrelated business tax rules that were intended to rein it in have never been used. And a reasonable rewriting of the tax-exempt rules should include narrowing the definition of public charity and subjecting all non-charitable income to corporate tax rate of 21%. Doing so could raise $40 billion annually, because what is going on is that they are getting away with running basically for-profit subversive groups that are globally oriented to control the populations without a lot of times their knowledge.
Yep.
And then they don't pay anything on them. So when you talk about that, and I think that before I get into it, I'm going to let you ask me a question, but I just want to say also the Tax Policy Center put out something similar, and it said that a relative number of nonprofit organizations where revenues exceed expenses save up to $21 billion a year in taxes from their nonprofit status. So again, you have to think in terms of that this includes universities, endowments, which many of them are in the 10, 20, with Harvard, $60 billion, no taxes. These hospital groups, no taxes. A lot of this stuff, Chamber of Commerce, no taxes, civil leagues, social welfare organization, real estate boards, labor, agriculture, horticulture organizations save more than $600 million a year not paying taxes. I mean, this is a gigantic money laundering operation that has become a cancer on our country.
And the same status is the one that handcuffed a lot of people in 2020. A lot of pastors were handcuffed by their 501c3 status because they wanted to speak out against what the government was doing, but they were afraid of losing their 501c3 status. I'm like, that's a golden handcuff that's not allowing you to speak freely. They're using it to shut down freedom of speech because of that status. That's like it's like an X that could hold something over top of you as a blackmail piece that you're not able to then move on with your life and move forward. Across the board, that is a very destructive.
It's fed the cowardice in the Christian church.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, but you have to understand that was put in there on purpose by Johnson, and frankly, Johnson obviously came in after JFK and the fake Warren report and all of that. I mean, we were so betrayed at that point. And JFK was telling us, I read that speech a lot, infiltration instead of invasion. And that is what I believe he was talking about most of all. But what you said just now is very important because we've become accustomed to that. And the other part that you put on it is the thing that a lot of people don't see, Colton, which is losing your 501c3 status as a church or a synagogue or a mosque would be a black eye that would probably destroy you.
Yeah.
So once you take it, what's going to happen if you lose it? And then Media Matters, who works for these disgusting, groups, that would then come out and say, so-and-so church lost their 501c3 status, and they could turn it that way.
Yeah.
So once you take that, and that's why I say, like, getting rid of the entire IRS is the best thing. It's unconstitutional, never should have happened. But in the meantime, the 501c3 status, you are correct, that was put in there was to control churches and pastors and people from being political, even though we know that our founding fathers were very, a lot of them were pastors and farmers that were very religious.
To hear it's an out for these organizations that are holding Americans down, and then it's used as handcuffs for the people that are supposed to be giving Americans courage. It's like that in one stroke of a pen, they're able to do both at the same time. It's very efficient use of their resources for sure.
Yeah, and what I noticed is right when Trump took office. Now, remember, I do not think the FBI has good rank and file, many layers below. Frankly, from everything I'm learning, certainly the CIA should be ended and that whole thing rescinded. But in the meantime, we do have to look in terms of, the battle ahead is so deeply ingrained and so many people have played a part in it that I think it's important to understand the class warfare going on here. So before I get into to point some, because I want your audience names to understand what happened here and how, and that it is the same bankers and billionaires and the grooming of their children out of the Poison Ivy League and then putting them into fellowships and all of this. Their children and they are not superior in any way. They are born and bred to continue down this path. Right. And I think that I have a clip from my friend Catherine Austin Fitz that kind of explains what we're dealing with on a grander scale of divide and conquer inside America, but frankly in every Western nation right now. If we want to play that clip, then I'll go into some of the people that I think your audience should be aware of.
Sounds great. Let's check it out.
So we've gone from imploding Russia to war in the Middle East to a pivot to Asia, and now we're pivoting to North America and changing the Department of Defense name back to the Department of War.
Yeah.
And so the question is the war on South America, North America, both?
I think those chickens are coming home to roost.
Right.
The war is against the non-mega rich, to be clear.
Right.
And we'll see the billionaires around the table a couple times today. That's who's waging the war. And if you're not if you're not at that table, you're a combatant in this war, whether you know it or not.
It's the mega rich versus everybody else. And in all the discussions about Gaza, everybody's positioning things as Muslim versus Christian. And yet, if you look at what's going on in Gaza and the Gaza waterfront development, the plan is that the rich Muslims and the rich Israelis will make money together on the waterfront development. So this framing...
The mega rich are all on the same team, regardless of their race, creed, color, anything else. Right.
And the fact that they can reframe a mega rich versus everyone into Muslim versus Christian, I mean, it's like squeezing an elephant into a makeup kit.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean? It's like Baskin Robbins had 33 flavors. These guys got 3,000 flavors of divide and conquer.
Right.
Okay, like, well, what do we need? Okay, what do we got to get to focus again for the 3,000th time in a row? Like Charlie Brown kicking the football. We got to get the focus on people non-mega rich against each other. What do we do? What do we got? We got black versus white. We've done that. We've done all these things. We're working class, white. Oh, I got it. Christian, Muslim. That'll work. That'll sell.
Right.
Yeah. Christian Muslim, that's a 500-year war there. That's an easy one to kind of get everybody stoked up for sure.
Yeah, well, also, if you ever read the papers of the nefarious Albert Pike, you would know that this was a long game. And again, every time it has been that. That's why in my digging into Germany, I feel Germany, the German people, regardless of the mind control and the, of course, kicked off here with the Smith Modernization Act pre everything that Obama kicked off. But what we need to understand is that the same people win every war that pay for every war. And again, we are there again, just like with the war on terror and everything else. And so I think a lot of what we're dealing with, especially with the 501c3s and all of that, is a manipulation of public opinion to support this over and over and over. And that's why I think that, knowing some of this is important. And first and foremost, I believe that the top of the spear here is not George Soros. I believe George Soros is a product of this. But I think that we have to start at the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, which anyone can look up. They don't hide who they are. They don't hide what they are, but they happen to be the most powerful organization, I think, in the world. Never forget that it was the Rockefeller family that not only ran Standard Oil and worked together with many people on Wall Street to fund both World War I and World War II, but at the same time, they created this model. So the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors is one of the Rockefeller nonprofits. It directs grants to develop strategic giving programs and assists other foundations in professionalizing their operations. The Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors was founded in 2002, but John D. Rockefeller and Peabody were the first two to start the model of subverting nations through supposed philanthropies, foundations that were protected and kind of ran above. The Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. So we're looking at who's behind the infiltration and the coordination and the mind control and manipulation of what has led us to the assassination of a good man trying to have open, honest conversations with other kids on a college campus. You have to think about who benefits, who is being threatened by this. And I would think that the threat is coming, as Nunes said. So you look at the Weather Underground. Well, a lot of those people, Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dohrn, a lot of these people, they ended up being professors in the Ivy League. And a lot of them as well, like Barack Obama, Norm Eisen studied at Harvard Law, particularly Harvard Law's class of 1991 that Norm Eisen was in with Barack Obama, studying under Cass Sunstein and Larry Summers and all these people. They all looked at themselves as, I think, kind of the offspring of the Weather Underground, of the entire Chicago movement. And as Norm Eisen bragged, Obama basically took his entire law school class of 1991 to D.C. with him. Now, one thing you want to know is that the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors made $410 million worth of grants in 2023 leading into the 2024 election. So the largest grants going to organizations promoting left-of-center principles in areas of environmentalism, leniency in criminal justice, abortion access, expanded immigration, gun control, gender policy, as well as to pass-through groups that you and I have done shows about, including Tide, Nexus, Arabella Advisors, Neo Philanthropy, Proteus Fund, and the Open Collective Foundation. Now, to understand a little bit of the history here is that the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors claim that their focus work involves philanthropic leadership. It engages in research, writes papers, creates coalitions for purposes of guiding donors and foundations. It has created a series of donor guides addressing issues like gender, climate change, and donor practices. In 2019, before 2020, the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors launched the Theory of Foundation Initiative, a multi-year program to help philanthropists strategically plan their giving to maximize their impact. Its outputs included the Philanthropy Framework, a philanthropic strategic methodology based on leadership methods of left of center organizations, meaning progressive organizations, including the California Endowment. The foundation in 2018 created the Scaling Solutions Report to advise on tips and strategies towards organizing philanthropic operations and to fund and help far left, really, but left of center foundations. According to the tax returns of 2023, the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors reported revenues of $644 million, expenses of $684 million, and total assets of $900 million. This includes $27 million in government grants, including 13 grants from USAID.
Wow.
Again, this is a tax-exempt organization.
Wow.
Okay, so these are tax-exempt organizations. So,
and when you're reading this, like when you go to rockpa.org, you're on the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors website here. It looks amazing. Like you're like reading this, you're like, who wouldn't support this? And so to think of it being connected to the kind of funding mechanisms that you're talking about, those trickle down dollars and how they start to infiltrate, because you see something on campus and you're like, man. You know, you see the rainbow hair, blue hair yelling. You're like, how does that connect to this, and how does that create this, and how does this pop up over here? And truly, the destruction and erosion of our culture, like you said earlier, that plant that just invaded and erodes,
yes.
Our society. You see something like this, you're like, it looks great, and you hear it, and nothing on here screams crazy. Nothing on here screams. What's going to happen? But when you see the trickle down,
so good.
Their branding's amazing, and you look at this, you're like, wow.
Best of the best in mind control. Never forget, Bernays created PR and advertising, really propaganda. And the truth of the matter is that the Rockefeller family was not just behind creating the Rockefeller model in the 30s. They were looked into by the Church Committee, Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Foundation, and Ford Foundation for subverting the will of the people of the United States with their foundation model. They have put it on steroids, and when Donald Trump came in, it got. I mean, it's unbelievable. But the goal has nothing to do with America. It is because they are partners in the international banking, international global public-private partnership. Public meaning the control of nations, private meaning NGOs and philanthropies and protected groups from what they created, which was the International Organization Immunity Act. I want to also remind people that the Rockefellers not only funded the United Nations and were involved before, but they, as I said, they worked together with other people on Wall Street, including J.P. Morgan, to refund Germany through the fraudulent Marshall Fund and other things to rearm Germany after World War I. Okay,
wow.
Where Germany was supposed to be paying reparations, the money was really going to the Bank of International Settlements. And who was in Germany at the time? 3 Americans. One was the top lawyer. There's all George Soros's foundations. One was the top lawyer for Sullivan and Cromwell, who was in Switzerland. That would be John Foster Dulles. And his brother, the OSS head in Switzerland, Alan Dulles, who then created the CIA. Also there was a man named McKittrick, who was running at the time the Bank of International Settlements, who was openly taking the money of Nazis that they looted and stole and ripped from 60 million victims of the Second World War into the Bank of International Settlements and Credit Suisse, and funneling it where? Into America. And then a lot of the corporations that were complicit, some of them even tried in Nuremberg, of course, they got slaps on the wrist, had their companies set up in America before the end of World War II for a planned next phase of this global governance model that now we know has come to pass as Agenda 2030. But you can go back again. We've talked on this show before about the Good Club and that meeting. So I just want to stress that the Rockefellers are behind of these things. The Council of Foreign Relations, in which Rockefeller put John Foster Dulles to run the Council of Foreign Relations for many years. We got, that's it. So basically everything, the World Economic Forum, the Council of Foreign Relations, Club of Rome, Chatham House, the UK wing of the Council of Foreign Relations, and the Rockefellers are all basically one and the same. They all have the same goal as does Bilderberg, Davos, the COP conferences, All of these things, the goal is to have no nation states, to have a one, just like Brzezinski or I don't know, the Third Reich wanted a unified Europe without the threat of Russia. So divide and conquer Russia as well, and then run the world through the banking system and these international NGOs and international global public-private partners from Geneva and Brussels, with, I guess, the U.S. to be their cash cow and their military-industrial complex providers, run by Wall Street and the City of London. And there you have it. And that is kind of what we're dealing with. And as I've talked to you before about some of the things that we have gone through in the past. One thing was there was a project way back when in 2009, a meeting in New York City known as the Good Club, which was also at the Rockefeller Institution there, the Rockefeller Foundation in New York. The Good Club was basically a group, the same group of people, the same families, the same members, the Good Club. So the Good Club in 2009, according to the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, some of the leading billionaires of the world's biggest philanthropies got together at a summit called by Bill Gates, the Microsoft founder. The Good Club included David Rockefeller, the patriarch of America's wealthiest dynasty, Warren Buffett, George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, Ted Turner, a big funder of a lot of this stuff as well, Oprah Winfrey, and many other people were there. And basically, what they discussed at this meeting was they talked about their favorite causes, and then Gates basically argued that healthier families freed from malaria and extreme poverty would change their habits and have fewer children within a generation. This conference was about depopulation, because overpopulation was a priority, which of course came from the Rockefeller Club of Rome, limits to growth, all of that fraudulent data that is obviously wrong, and about how to prevent future pandemics. Oddly enough. Now,
11 years before one of the biggest ones.
Yes, and of course we know that Bill Gates, Johns Hopkins, and the World Economic Forum set up Event 201. Bill Gates basically went on to tell all the people at this meeting that they were the stewards of the future. And from that day forward, we saw nothing less than that. And then, of course, you can always go back to the 90s when Al Gore and Bill Clinton, good soldiers of this Rockefeller model, started the entire climate nonsense back then. Also, these are all existential threats. So the whole goal of the whole globalist operation, which I believe the American people have paid for to the tune of trillions of dollars, all of it, is that if things are global, then national sovereignty, it gets in the way. So global warming, global wars, global pandemics, global crisis, this equals the need, obviously, to them for global governance. Therefore, the idea of nation states no longer works. Well, they were already running the world as if there were no nation states since post-World War II. Just they had to keep the illusion going that that was not true. So there also came something else called the Giving Pledge out of the Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, philanthropic world. In 2022, 236 signatories, that would be multi-billionaires, in 28 countries signed on to a pledge that would total U.S. $600 billion. The organization's stated goal is to inspire the wealthy people of the world to give at least half of their net worth to philanthropy either during their lifetime or upon death. The pledge is a public gesture of an intention to give, not a legal contract. On the Giving Pledge website, they list all the people, but basically in 2010, in tandem with the Good Club, the Giving Pledge campaign was announced by Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, and Warren Buffett. As of August 2010, they had 40 pledgers with $125 billion. 2011, 69 more joined. 2017, 158 more joined. And that is, and if you look at who it is, it's Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Mark McKinsey Scott, who is Bezos's ex-wife, Dustin Moskovitz, Carl Icahn, Pierre Omidyar, John Doerr, Melinda Gates. It goes on and on. George Lucas. There's many, many people on here, but the goal, Jeff Skoll, the goal, of course, is to have a $600 billion fund that pushes policy above nation states. And it goes totally in tandem with the entire goals expressed at that Good Club meeting. Now, back to I believe the top of the spear of all of this is the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. So I just want to talk a little bit. I don't know how much time we have left, but I do want to talk a little bit about the things that the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors back. Now, I also want to mention that there are 3 other people, including George Soros, Pierre Omidyar, the Omidyar Network, and his group is also not just that, but the Democracy Fund, and of course Reid Hoffman, who he has multiple things, but Forward Majority PAC, House Majority PAC, lots of PACs, but also he funds a lot of things, including investing in the U.S. That's one of his groups, a Progressive Policy Institute. Of course, he's a member of Bilderberg, co-founder of Forward, FWD.US, which are partnered with Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and himself. Of course, a member of the Council of Foreign Relations and others. But to really hit it home here for the audience. So let's talk about 2023. So we're talking about during the Otto Penn administration, Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. Now they advise their donors, the people that give them money to the tune of $900 million in 2023, where to put their money. So they put to environmental advocacy, research, and litigation. So who are the top 10 grants in 2023 from the Rockefeller Institute in environmental advocacy? So that would be the Climate Leadership Initiative, Climate Breakthrough, Climate Arc, Oil Change International, Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, World Wildlife Fund, Rocky Mountain Institute, all the usual suspects that you know of, all the things that are, going crazy, Southern Environmental Law Center, Earth Rights International, Global Green Grants, Care About Climate, Eco Justice Collaborative, Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, Center for Race, Poverty, and Environment, Rainforest Action Network, on and on and on, and Rainforest Alliance. Of course, this was in tandem with the MacArthur Foundation and the Gates Foundation. Every single one of those groups, for whatever reason, is against fossil fuels. Of course, Rockefeller's claim to fame and biggest thing is Standard Oil. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at this and say, wait, what? You know, and never forget, Standard Oil was very involved in World War I and World War II. Also, the Rockefellers basically took over the entire education system out of the first Rockefeller Foundation in the 30s with this education fund that a lot of people don't know about. They also took over the American Medical Association. They also shut down any natural remedies because they wanted Standard Oil and their derivatives to control the pharmaceutical industry, in tandem with their partners in Germany, IG Farben, that they made a deal with going into World War II, that they would handle the oil and gas and everything and work with, the subsidiaries of GE and Ford and IBM and all the ones that were helping fight the war in Germany against us and the allies of the world. At the same time, IG Farben took over all of the pharmaceutical. Well, a lot of the pharmaceutical firms, including in the pandemic, were born of this group. So you know that. So that's one. Now, how about international development? Well, in 2023, they had a number of relationships and gave plenty of money to the United Nations, USAID, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, i.e. Agenda 2030, the Earth Charter Fund, which is a black hole of money laundering for supposedly sustainable development goals. And you all know what I believe that means, which is the final Third World War consolidation, post-consolidation, because as Smedley Butler said in World War I, all wars are bankers' wars. And of course, the winner are the people that reconstruct the country after the war. So this has a lot to do with that. So the Sustainable Development Goals is Agenda 2030, which to me is the final frontier of the Brzezinski-Kissinger model of technocracy. So totalitarian technocracy controlled by algorithms and AI that would be implemented through Agenda 2030, I believe, after a pre-planned, certainly since the 90s, World War III, which they, of course, kicked off in Ukraine as soon as the Autopen president got in, to which Donald Trump was not allowed to meddle, which is exactly why the Russiagate is much bigger than the United States, because we would not be here now for multiple reasons, and it was designed that way. So they gave money to all of that, including the Society for International Development, Global Citizen, UNICEF, UNESCO. And why is that? Because they all fall under the umbrella of the International Organization Immunity Act of 1945, which protects anything that works on an international level with the United Nations, which they also created. So in 2025, USAID is alleged to, now this is before Trump came in, right? So remember, they were throwing money out, and then USAID got looked into first by Doge. Before they came in, Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors got 13 grants from the Biden USAID with that's U.S. taxpayer money going to these billionaires. I mean, like 10 times over. U.S. taxpayer money, with the largest grant of 13 being 20 million. So anywhere between 10 and 20 million, 13 grants from Biden's USAID went to the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors to develop, get this, a new international fund for public interest media, a sponsored project of Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. And that doesn't even begin with the media. So let's talk about Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors 2023 donations in the pro-abortion advocacy. So they gave hundreds of millions of dollars out to Planned Parenthood, Spark Reproductive Justice Now, Physicians for Reproductive Health, National Network for Abortion, Reproductive Justice, Planned Parenthood Rocky Mountain, all the different Planned Parenthoods, also the Collaborative for Gender and Reproductive Equity. They collaborated also, again, with Mackenzie Scott, that's Jeff Bezos' widow, the Foundation for a Just Society, Wellspring Philanthropic Fund, Acton Family Giving, and David and Lucille Packard Fund. Now, supporting labor unions. Why would labor unions need money from the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors? Well, apparently because they control them. So again, they gave money to the SEIU, to the Amalgamated Charitable Foundation, International Labor Rights, National Day Labor Organization Network, United Farm Workers, One Fair Wage, La Union del Pueblo Entero, which takes you into the money they gave in 2023 to immigration advocacy for open borders, Welcoming America, American Immigration Council, International Refugee Rights Initiative, Immigration Legal Resource Center, National Immigration Project of the National Lawyers Guild, which is a communist lawyers guild, American Business Immigration Coalition. So then next, 2023, I'm talking about just in the last 2 years, they gave an enormous amount of money to many criminal justice reform organizations, including the nefarious anti-Constitution NYU housed Brennan Center for Justice, National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, Gathering for Justice, Democratic Justice Initiative, Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, Equal Justice Initiative, First Defense Legal Aid, Centro por la Justica, and, of course, the American Civil Liberties Union. They did that in cahoots with the Ford Foundation. Now, to kind of wrap this all up, the truth is...
That kind of starts making more sense, how you can have a guy with 14 prior arrests on a train take out, a Ukrainian immigrant.
Yeah.
It's like it seems to be funding the Alvin Braggs and those kind of characters to create this disruptive society that would be the downfall of America.
Right, to collapse America from inside.
To rot it with termites in the 2x4s.
Exactly. And I want to mention, because we did a show on it years ago, me and you guys, responsibility to protect. We are not out of the water of the responsibility to protect. Don't forget Samantha Power and Barack Obama and George egged on by George Soros and I believe the Council of Foreign Relations, went into sovereign nations, including Libya, under the guise of that the people of that nation, the government of those nations, and I'm talking about every single one they went into, the sovereign nations, particularly Syria, Libya, but you can go to all the ones that were in the war on terror, under the guise of that they were going in to protect the people because the government of that country was not doing it or had turned on the people. Meanwhile, USAID, National Endowment for Democracy, and many of these groups that are on that chart, Colton, and that I just brought up, were in that country years before creating the opposition. Again, the CIA and the regime change and color revolutions. So again, we, the taxpayers of the United States, are paying for this and inadvertently paying more for it because they don't get taxed. Yep. So all of the middle class taxpayer, like I said, $40 billion a year would be taken in taxes if there was not this 501c3 status for these billionaire organizations that claim to be nonprofits because they are helping social stuff, or they're a chamber of commerce, or they're some kind of association. The level to which 1.8 million 501c3s have been able to get away with this is mind-blowing. And if you want to talk about our debt, it's because of this more than anything else, in my opinion. So I just want to clarify before we go any further. Why don't we play, since I think we're running out of time, why don't we play real quick? Ed Dowd, I think, is new to this. Of course, he's the great Ed Dowd who really came awake during COVID, expressed what he thought. But he also worked at BlackRock and is a very wealthy man. But for him to come to this conclusion that we are, and that all of America should, because only in America, because of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and our founding, do the people of this country still have a voice and a say at this point, which means if we all get together and realize what Catherine Austin Fitts said, which was, this is not about left versus right or black versus white or rich versus poor. This is about the mega billionaires who have made their money through this international global public-private partnership well before World War I that has still worked to this day. I believe BlackRock really and Vanguard need to be looked at because I don't see how they're not this. But in the meantime, let's listen to Ed Dowd. I think because he's kind of coming to this now after being in that world, kind of like Rob too. He was a banker for 30 years. When I was first talking about it, he said, what are you talking about? Even Rush Limbaugh used to say, there's no grand international conspiracy. Well, I beg to differ. And I think that the COVID pandemic actually was their downfall. Let's take a look at what Ed Dowd says here.
Country is a class problem. We have, 1% of global wealth is the 1% of the population of the globe owns 50% of the global wealth. So this is a class issue. It's been going on for a long time, since the great financial crisis and since 2000. And we have, and this is not just a U.S. problem, this is a global problem. And when we get to these types of situations, they're cured one of two ways. The elites pay an existential price, and or the system collapse and they're forced to share the wealth again. So this is how it's done. I'm not suggesting it's imminent, but this is why you're seeing the rise of populism. And this is also why you're seeing the rise of division, because the way you control the many is you make the many hate each other. You make, the pitchfork guy look at the torch guy and say, hey, the torch guys are trying to take our pitchforks. And that's what's going on today. We got all this finger pointing. This is a class issue. It's not a black, white, Hispanic, left, right, Muslim. This is a class issue.
And that is the truth. And the truth is, divide and conquer has always been the way it works. It's just, unfortunately, this has gone on for almost 100 years and right before our eyes without us really seeing it. And we have been fooled. And I want to just continue down. And the reason I'm focusing on the Rockefellers is because it is their model that has been replicated by the Clinton Foundation, by the Open Society, by the Omidyar Foundations, by all of these groups. And unfortunately, they can say all they want, but all of the subversive groups are left-wing, but they're not left, I want to stress that the people that are funding this do not care about America. They've been done with America for about 30 years. As Yuri Bezmenov, I know you guys have had on G. Edward Griffin, and his great interview I always recommend to people with Yuri Bezmenov, who basically broke down that by the 80s, we were already infiltrated. 100%, like he said, and that when he gave the interview, that it was already there, as G. Edward Griffin has spent his whole life telling everyone. So think about what has happened since the 80s. Pop in, the war on terror, and of course, last week was on the 11th. Wasn't just September 11th, and then Charlie Kirk, and then we forgot also about Benghazi, a total fraud, a total lie that was covered up. So basically, since the murder of JFK by these same people, frankly, there has been no justice for the people of the United States of America on any level when it comes to any of this, including all of the children and fathers and daughters and sisters and brothers that have died in 2 world wars and the war on terror that it seems have all been a manipulation of the masses to go along with a lot of this stuff. I just want to also, before we go, is tell your audience that the left-wing pass-throughs, so we've talked about Arabella Partners here and all of that. You would think because they all have billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars, they wouldn't need money from the Rockefeller philanthropy advisors. But of course, they all work together. That's why I'm trying to explain this story, and I want you to know about, bring up that graph. So partners of the Rockefeller philanthropy advisors are other philanthropy advisors, which is very strange. So that includes they've given a ton of money, millions, to the Tides Center, the Tides Advocacy, Tides Foundation, which is behind most of the LGBTQ and the trans stuff and all of that, the hormone blockers, Planned Parenthood, all of that. They've given millions to Arabella Advisors, New Venture Fund, and Hopewell Fund. They've given millions to NEO Philanthropy. They've given hundreds of thousands, and I'm talking just since 2023, not for the last 30 years. They've just in 2023, hundreds of thousands to Proteus Fund, hundreds of thousands to Open Collective, and 100,000 each to Bill and Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation and the Barack Obama Foundation. And this goes on and on. Now, the last thing I want to say is that this is the hardest and most disturbing part is hundreds of millions of dollars through Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, which is essentially a pass-through, has gone to left-of-center media, advocacy, social media, and organizing groups, including Progress Now, New America Foundation, Defending Rights and Dissent, Online Progressive Engagement Network, National Women's Law Center, Urban League, California Public Interest Research Group Education Fund. We got Progressive Multiplier Fund, Indivisible, Sundance Institute, Center for Economic and Social Rights, Color of Change, Millennium Action Project, and about 6 progressive groups besides that, including NAACP and other groups. So what we need to understand is that we have not a class problem like you would talk about Marx. We have a group of people that for over 100 years have gotten away with subverting the will of the people, the votes, the voices. They fund all of Norm Eisen's, basically lawfare and Brookings and all of that. They fund everything to take down Trump. We know that George Soros, Open Society, was very involved with the Hillary Clinton dossier and everything that happened after that, because that has finally come out. What we are dealing with is a small group, honestly. You could start with the people that run Bilderberg, Davos, and all of them. What's very scary right now, of course, we've done many shows on BlackRock, is that not only the day that Donald Trump finally met face-to-face after all these years of being kept away and unable to with Vladimir Putin one-on-one, Larry Fink was elevated to the top of the World Economic Forum, which is essentially the PR firm for the global public-private partnership and the international bankers. Wow. The reason that's so disturbing is because this is where that model comes from. Global public-private partnership are these groups. And I think that we need to take into account that not only is he now the head of this entire situation, but BlackRock runs a lot of our public pensions in America. So
Yeah,
a lot of
majority.
our public pensions are invest through BlackRock, including the largest public pension, which is the California Public Employees Retirement System, New York State Common Retirement Fund, Florida Retirement System, Texas Investment Fund, and on and on and on. And frankly, I don't understand how this is allowed, because to me, this is a new model for an old model for a new generation of plundering and looting and deceiving the people of the United States to pay for it all. And I am writing this book, and I am almost positive that every single dollar that has been invested since the 90s into globalization has come from the U.S. taxpayer. And it has come through these groups and loans from and grants from USAID. Why is USAID putting taxpayer money into an endowment at Harvard or Yale that's $50 million and they don't have to pay taxes, but we're paying them with our taxes?
Right.
Or Kaiser Permanente is the biggest nonprofit in the country and they don't pay any tax. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you is that George H.W. Bush left out the most important world. We were being taken over by an international financial world order.
Mel, let me ask you a series
And
of questions
it's
and tie this together, because when you look at
Right.
the people online that came out celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, you could it wasn't a lot of HVAC workers. It wasn't a lot of, electricians. It was school teachers, people that had spent the most amount of time in the education system or professionally in the education system, and the medical system.
Yes.
Which both of those receive massive funding and infiltration from what you're saying. So that kind of makes sense. And then you have this media component over here that you've kind of alluded to several times, and it's not just mainstream media, what you see on a television. It's the social media algorithm geared towards. It's not organic flow based on your friends and what they're saying that you see. You end up in echo chambers that reinforce your rage. And then that builds a pocket of people that then, like the Democrat Party, comes along and just caters to. Once you get
Right.
them enraged over the same thing, like, Charlie Kirk's famous for having conversations with people, ask them how many black males are killed by police unarmed each year. And they're always like thousands, and it's like 11. That's created by the algorithm, and then the Democratic Party
thousands.
feeds to the product created by the algorithm. So you kind of have this media component, you have the education component. It's been baffling to me for years that really healthy, good families will send a child to some university, and by Christmas they come back with blue hair and they're crazy and they hate their family and they hate America. So there's the education.
Tyler Robinson only went to his college for one semester. And inside one semester, his family said that there's already been quotes coming out. He came back a different person. And from that point forward, he was already radicalized. He didn't go back after that. He did one semester, radicalized. And then from that point forward, he was in a totally different group. I mean, he's the friends he associated with, the transgender roommate that's already come out, the furry club that he was part of, all that stuff came after one semester in college.
So we have these three. To me, I'm looking at three major pockets. You have the media algorithm, which is you go to any restaurant, there's going to be a family of 4 or 5, and the husband and wife and all 3 of their kids are all going to be sitting there staring at their phones. And so I don't know how you recapture that. There's the famous picture of Tyler Robinson, when he was like 10, and the mom's like, I guess we won't see Tyler again because he got all the gifts he wanted for Christmas. He's going to be in his room on the games. It's
I got to hear
a family, breakdown. So you have that area, education, and then the medical world. For whatever reason, the people who are supposed to be taking care of our health, there's kind of the beginning of the end.
December
I would think, for that kid.
December 25th, 2013.
Once they slip out of the grasp of the parents and they slip into cyber world, we've never had a society where people were influenced more heavily by people they've never met than they are by people that they're in relationship with. And that seems to be the product of that.
Yeah, this is where I say that our country is as sick as its secrets, because nobody wants to admit what's really happened here. And I frankly can take it back. I still to this day, I will stand by this, that I believe this whole model was created by people associated with the Federal Reserve families, the Rockefellers particularly, but a lot of this was hammered out by international lawyers, mainly from America, bankers from multiple nations, and the Dulles brothers and their cohorts during World War II while we were fighting, and they were planning for a future that they wanted. And then, of course, they trained and brought to power what we now call neocons, but really it's the Project for a New American Century, which was written in 2000, and it was basically full spectrum dominance militarily, but a lot of people forget that it's psychologically too. The cognitive warfare, silent, what's called silent weapons for quiet wars, that came out of Harvard, and they said it was a conspiracy theory. I don't think it was at all. Or Colonel Aquino's mind wars from the 60s. So if you look at Dulles and his cohorts, which I think include Mengele and other Nazi scientists that perfected mind control and manipulation, where were they doing those experiments? At Harvard, at Stanford, at Yale, at Columbia. Where were these kids being groomed to go? Where was the CIA recruiting? Because both Dulles brothers and McKittrick that were in the Americans in Switzerland planning all of this, they were all basically Ivy League educated lawyers. They were lawyers. These were all lawyers. Lawfare goes very far back. And then the other thing, David, you brought up, which is brilliant and people have to understand, is that they then gave a lot of their money to these endowments. You know, you go to any of these schools. So their kids went to where? Choate or Andover in America, or Eton in London, or one of these schools in Switzerland. Then they are popped right into, whether they're qualified or not, because I can tell you most of them I met are not. And then they're popped into there. And then it's not about education. It's about indoctrination on a major scale. But the other thing that's happened more since the 90s, particularly, is what I call kind of the infiltration of the universities. And this is when the real, the Weather Underground became all the professors, basically. They started giving out degrees that were not worth anything for hundreds of thousands of dollars, putting people in debt. Well, you know, the one thing that all these degrees were qualified for, to go work at NGOs. So they were being recruited in university to then go work at one of these NGOs. So we have an army full, and these are who the people that the Autopen presidency wanted to, cancel their student debt. Well, that's because they trained the next generation of workers in these subversive NGOs and nonprofits and foundations to do exactly that. To not be an innovator, to not be, also, and I think we have to be very clear about this, In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA, which is DARPA, funded all of it. And I'm talking about Google,
right?
Wikipedia. I'm talking about Facebook, Twitter, all of it. And worse than that, and I think we have to all really understand this, is that the Patriot Act was in the 1990s. Hillary Clinton, remember Hillary Care, that didn't pass? The Patriot Act was in that, which means that they already had the ability. By the time Snowden came along in 2012, since the 90s, they were doing that. So what we're dealing with, and don't forget, In-Q-Tel and CIA also funded Oracle and Palantir. So what you do have to look at here in a bigger picture is the United States of America, the people of this country, have been so lied to and deceived. All roads, in my opinion, lead to both Dulles brothers and their inner circle of bankers and lawyers and financiers. But at the end of the day, the track and trace surveillance, full track and everything that came after the nefarious and unconstitutional Patriot Act that never should have been passed in the United States of America, that basically eliminated our Constitution, then went on steroids with social media, was all planned. And it was in anyone can look it up. It was definitely in the Hillary Clinton, Hillary Care. Okay. For full track
these
and trace
social media platforms are not, we look at them as tech platforms. They're neuroscience platforms.
Social engineering.
I mean, there's more brain power in the neuroscience area that went into the Instagram
1,000%.
algorithm, that went into writing code. The code is simple. Right. It's the dopamine hit, refresh, addictive tendency that created that.
Yeah, and I want to also mention, because I've been doing a lot of work on this. This is important, and it's important for the American people to not blame themselves, as it's important, honestly, for a lot of nations that came out on the wrong side, is that the level of deception that was cooked up under these people, particularly Alan Dulles and James Angleton and all of the people, when on the work I'm doing, particularly in The Devil's Chessboard, is a really shocking book. I literally kept me up at night. What I will tell you is that many of the Nazis that they befriended in Switzerland, that they worked with, particularly at the Reich Bank, and that were looting 60 million people, sending people in Germany, but not just, people forget, Hungary, Lithuania, Poland, France. I mean, they were looting these people, they were killing them, they were throwing them on trains. They were working in Switzerland as if nothing was happening. And during that time, they created an international spy network. This book will blow people's minds. And I believe, it's just so disturbing. But I'm telling you, I fully believe that the Nazis did not lose World War II and instead continued on in America. And frankly, if people want to think that that's anti-Semitic, as the ADL called me for saying it 5 years ago, I still believe it, and I believe it even more now, because the multinational corporations and international law firms that have grown in America to run this country were spawned from this same thing. And all the track and trace surveillance and the mind control and the MK Ultra, as Kathy O'Brien and Juliet Engel and I'm sure Bonacci, if he was still alive, all the survivors that got to testify about MK Ultra all said that they were learning this. And when you read that book, you find that these guys were friends with the worst and of the worst of the Nazi highest level regime. And really the international bankers, international lawyers, multinational corporations that had one foot in Germany, one foot in America, they all worked together for the post-World War II globalization, global governance model that we right now, thank God Donald Trump won, because I'm telling you, both Bushes, Obama, and both Clintons and Biden were all in on it, particularly George Bush and his father. So George Bush Sr. and his father. So, I mean, we really do have to understand the evil. And then to think that there's airports named after the Dulles brothers is so disgusting to me. Their relationships, they also, both of them should have been tried for treason, frankly. They betrayed FDR, and then mysteriously, even though he was very sick, he died before he could hold them accountable, and he was about to. So this whole model of the CIA has to be dissolved. I do not understand how Ratcliffe or anyone else can save it. And frankly, I believe the CIA was 100% behind what happened to Trump in the first term. And it was a global project, because the CIA is not and has never worked for the people of the United States or this country. It has always worked for the same people that created it in Switzerland during the war.
So good. So good. Well, there's a few call to actions here, guys. If you're listening to this and you're like, man, I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed. Like, it feels like there's this giant enemy, and you're like, man, where do we even go from here? I would highly encourage.
It's the opposite. People have to understand the enemy is not giant. That's the point here. The enemy, there's 8 billion of us. I would say there's probably 6,000 of these people that are running the world right now. And all we need is to say that they have no authority and stop playing along. If you are a member of the World Economic Forum, you have no business being in our government or running all of our corporations. If you are, if Donald Trump has to get rid of the International Organizations Immunity Act, get rid of the Smith Modernization Act. These are Nazi programs. I'm telling you, and it's because we've created this idea that the Nazis are the ones, that burn people alive. We always talk about and speaking of what happened this weekend with Charlie Kirk, we often talk about the 6 million Jews and probably 12 million others who died in the concentration camps in Poland and Hungary and everywhere else. We rarely talk about the millions of people that work there. And that is the truth. And that is what we're dealing with in America. But you know what? We're awake, we're aware, and there are way more of us. Love is the answer here, but we have to be honest. Our country is as sick of its secrets. And if we want to heal ourselves, we have to be honest.
You say 6,000 is probably even like a pocket of 300 at the top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's as small as that.
Oh, absolutely. Just follow the events and look at who's on the boards. It's the boards of these groups that should be banned from having anything to do with our country, in my opinion. And you know what? They created the whole thing. All those guys created the whole thing, that nationalism and populism and self-governance are traitors. That you're not a patriot. This is all straight out of everything that Dulles and Angleton and don't forget Angleton, who came in after Dulles. He was the one that was in cahoots with the Mossad. So I don't think that these international intelligence agencies, and never forget that they put Barack Obama, but I think even before him, they merged the Five Eyes nations intelligence agencies. There's no doubt in my mind MI6 and CIA are the same people. And all you have to do is look at the birth of these groups. So, I just think that we really have to realize that we are all equally, not black, white, gay, straight, any of that. We have all been equally deceived and betrayed by a intelligence community that is global, that protects everything but the people.
So good. At the Mel K Show, you can get Americans Anonymous. It's your amazing book, but that would give you guys some good marching orders. If you're like, what's next? How do we come back from this? What's the fight? Where, how do I take it? And it does give a pretty good overview of all the stuff that she was talking about in the show here as well. But then what do you do with this information? Where do you go from there? That's a great source. I will also say your resources section. Whenever something gets kind of weird and something gets funky and I've not heard of an organization before, I'm like, what is this organization? First place I go is I click on your resources tab and I start scrolling through and I start looking for those code words, the code names I heard. And then I would definitely encourage everyone here, sign up for Mel's newsletter, sign up to stay connected to her. You are giving away a chance to come down and visit you in Florida, sunny Florida. Hopefully in the wintertime.
And we'll have flyovers here. When we get our things squared out, we're going to definitely have our family friends, the flyovers, join us too. But we're figuring that out because we figure, you know what? I know you guys feel this way too. It was the greatest honor of my life going around with our America, our American Patriot family with the Reawaken America Tour for 4 years. And I think we made a big difference. And I think we can continue to spread love and peace and friendship and community and working together for a better future. So because the more perfect union is really up to us. We are still the founders of this nation. And at our 250th birthday, I believe that we will feel that way. So everyone keep fighting, stay positive, and know who the enemy is and prove it in your sphere of influence, and before long people will drop the infighting and realize that we're all really on the same side.
Awesome. Thank you, Mel. Appreciate it.
Everyone is talking about this.
The one thing that's very important part of my portfolio all these years is gold.
As gold hit all-time highs already this year.
And get a free info kit on gold today.
It's called silver.
Gold coin.
And though we are thrilled that everyone is talking about investing in precious metals, a lot of these 1-800 numbers will make you feel like just another transaction. That's why it's crucial to work with a person, not a faceless institution, when it comes to your finances. You deserve to be treated like family, not just another number. Dr. Kirk Elliott, who we've known for over 25 years, he doesn't just sell gold and silver. He offers trust, care, and a personal touch that an impersonal institution could never match. So when it comes to securing your financial future, don't just call a company, call a person. Call Dr. Kirk Elliott at 720-605-3900 or visit flyovergold.com to learn more.
Do your feet ache and throb in pain with every step you take every day of your life? Well, kiss those days goodbye with slippers from MyPillow.com. How about that flimsy, flat little excuse for a pillow that's nothing but 8 hours of disappointment, causing you pain in your neck every single night? You can wake up with nothing but butterflies and rainbows around your head with a MyPillow pillow. Those hardwood floors hurting your old bones? No more with a MyPillow dog bed. Are your towels worn thin, flimsy, more patchy than Joe Biden's memory? There's nothing better than absorbent towels from MyPillow.com. For all of these products and more, go to MyPillow.com and use promo code FLYOVER for up to 66% off.
Not all freeze-dried meats are created equal.
With FlyOverMeat.com, you get grass-fed, grass-finished beef grown right here in the United States. And it's not full of mRNA technologies and vaccines and things that are going to hurt your family. This ensures you're only going to get the best.
Their freeze-drying process locks in the nutrients, so you're getting the same health benefits as you would if it was fresh meat.
Each 4-ounce package rehydrates to 1 pound of raw beef that you can cook and turn into your favorite recipes, from chili to tacos to a hamburger, whatever you want.
So go to flyovermeat.com. Make sure you use your promo code FLYOVER for your exclusive discount.
All right, Flyover family. My name is Avery Whited. I'm the daughter of David and Stacy. I'm just moving in, so I had to get an order for my pillow and get the things that I needed. So let's look inside. I got some My Pillow towels, kitchen towels. I got some of their Giza sheets. Now, I've never actually been able to use them, but I've heard amazing things from my parents about them. And last but not least, something for Charlie. Hey, dog bed. All right, Charlie, let's go put this in the dryer and flip it up for you. Come on, buddy. Nice and warm and fluffy. Perfect for my little guy. Come here, Charlie. All right, if you want to get your own products, go to mypillow.com and use promo code FLYOVER to save up to 66% off.
If you had a time machine and you could go back to, say, 1930 and you had 1 ounce of gold or a $20 bill, both of those would buy you a complete men's suit, brand new, the shirt, the tie, the belt. Either one would buy you the whole thing. If you had a time machine and then you brought both of those resources into today, 1 ounce of gold could still buy you a full suit at pretty much any men's store in America. The $20 bill, why, it'd probably only get you a handkerchief or a pair of socks.
How do you get the gold and silver? Well, it's very simple. We have a friend that we've known for over 25 years. In fact, his dad was a mentor of ours, and his name is Dr. Kirk Elliott. And the way that you connect with him is you go to flyovergold.com. It's a website that we set up to make it very simple. All you do is go there, fill out your information, and someone from Dr. Kirk's team will get a hold of you to answer all of your questions. Whatever you have, they can help you out. Or you can simply call 720-605-3900. Again, 720-605-3900 to set up that free consultation. Do it today. You will be so glad that you did. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.